Okay, guys, so what we are going to do today is we are going to be practicing converting customary units of length and metric units of length. So the first thing that you need to write down on your scrap paper is all of your conversions. So 1 foot equals 12 inches, 1 yard equals 36 inches, 1 yard equals 3 feet, or 1 mile equals 1,760 yards. Then you need to think, am I going from a smaller unit of measurement to a larger unit of measurement, or a larger unit of measurement to a smaller unit of measurement? When I'm going from a smaller unit of measurement to a larger unit of measurement, I'm thinking about, let's say, 12 inches to feet. If I'm going from 12 to 1, I'm going from a lot of something to not a lot of something. So I'm going to be actually dividing. So I would divide when I go from smaller to larger. Then if I go from a larger unit of measurement to a smaller unit of measurement, I go from a smaller number of a big size to a larger number of a small size. So I'm going from not a lot to a lot of little pieces. So I'm going to multiply. Okay. So now let's take a look at some examples here. The first example here that I have is 7 feet equals how many inches? Well, I want to look at my conversion and I want to think, am I going from a larger unit to a smaller unit or smaller unit to larger? So the first thing I want to write down is I want to write down the conversion. So how many inches are in 1 foot? So 1 foot equals 12 inches. So what am I doing here? I'm going from a larger unit, which is my feet, to a smaller unit, which is my inches. So if I'm going from larger to smaller, what am I doing? I'm multiplying. Well, what am I multiplying by? 1 times what gives me 12? Well, 1 times anything gives you itself, right? So that would be 12. So if I do that to the bottom, I have to do the same thing to the top. So I'm going to do 1 times, or 7 times 12 equals 84. And I can plug that into my handy dandy calculator. For all units of conversion, you are allowed to use a calculator for any converting at all. So now let's take a look at the next one. I have 8 yards. And I'm converting it to feet. So I have 1 yard equals how many feet? Well, let's look at our conversion chart. 1 yard equals 3 feet. So what did I do? I went from yards to feet. Well, a yard is bigger than a foot, so I'm going from a larger unit to a smaller unit again. So that must mean that I am larger to smaller. I am multiplying. Times what though? 1 times what gives me 3. So it looks like 1 times 3 gives me 3. So if I do that to the bottom, I have to do the same thing to the top. So now I'm going to do 8 times 3 gives me what? 24. Okay. So now let's look at this one over here. This one's a little bit different. I go from inches to feet. So how many inches are in a foot? Well, let's look. 12 inches. I'm going to line up the measurements. Equals 1 foot. So what did I do? I went from a smaller unit of measurement to a larger unit of measurement. Inches are smaller than feet because it takes 12 of them to make up 1 of them. So therefore, if I went from smaller to larger this time, I need to divide. Well, what am I going to divide by? 12 times 1 gives me 12. What times 12 gives me, 1 times what gives me 12? And I have 12. So 12 divided by 12 gives me 1. So I'm going to divide the same thing by the top. So we're going to divide by 12 up here. And I'm going to plug it into my calculator, and I get 6. Okay. So now converting metric measurement is not any different. Again, the biggest part about any of this stuff is knowing these conversions right here, and you got these on Friday. So I want to look at, I'm going from 5,000 millimeters to how many meters? So how many millimeters equals 1 meter? So 1,000 millimeters equals 1 meter. Okay, so what did I do to get from here to here? Well, it looks like I went from a small unit of measurement to a larger unit of measurement. So what do I do with that case? I have to divide. Okay, so I'm going to divide by what? Well, 1,000 divided by what gives me 1? Well, anything divided by itself gives you 1. So 1,000 divided by 1,000 gives me 1. So 1 times 1,000 would give me 1,000 too. So I'm going to do the same thing up top. I'm going to divide by 1,000. 5,000 divided by 1,000 plugged into the calculator gives me 5. These are easy because you're looking at the powers of 10. Just like when you added those zeros for multiplication, you're crossing out the zeros for division. So I take away my 3 zeros and I get 5 divided by 1 is 5. Now this one, I'm going from a larger unit to a smaller unit this time. So what do I do when I go from larger to smaller? I multiply. So a larger unit, so I'm looking at meters to centimeters. Well, how many centimeters are in 1 meter? Well, 1 meter equals 100, not 1,000, centimeters. Okay, so what did I do to get from 1 to 100? I multiplied by 100. So 6 times 100 equals 600. Again, you are allowed to use a calculator, but the biggest part about any of this is knowing these conversions. 1 foot to 12 inches, 1 yard to 36 inches, 1 yard to 3 feet, 1 mile to 1,760 yards. And then all of your metric. 10 millimeters equals 1 centimeter, 100 centimeters equals a meter, 1,000 millimeters equals 1 meter. So now you're going to go and practice a few more on your Nearpod. Have fun!